Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to the Congregational Forum. In the interest of time, we're just going to go ahead and get things going. For those of you who don't know me, I am Brett Hartman. I'm the Church Council Vice President. Again, Jim Jocks could not be here for our discussion tonight. He is our Church Council President, but he's been integral in this process, so he's very knowledgeable too. So if you guys have questions and you want to follow up with him, after the meeting, you can. Why are we here? Over a year ago, we started a discernment process for Little Antioch, and we were talking about what we could do with our resources and what we have here. And so council, along with church leadership, had consulted with LCEF, Lutheran Church Extension Fund, to do a highest and best use study of our campus, our property, our 14.5 acres that we have here, to determine, what we could do that would benefit us, benefit the community, and be in alignment with our mission for Little Antioch. So, LCEF identified potential opportunity for multifamily housing as a good fit. And at the November voters meeting, Dana Sherman and I presented just a high-level view of that proposal from LCEF. So, as we promised, tonight, Jonathan Ward from LCEF is here. He'll have a little bit more of the vision and a little bit more detail in some slides for you guys to go through. Again, this is just a first phase, so this is still the outside of the onion. We haven't gotten into the middle of the onion, so just know that it's layers. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to Pastor Jeff for, just getting us going with some prayer and introduction.
Thank you, Brett. If Jim Jocks is watching, we got our eye on you. He just leaves and lets you stand in the middle. Well, we're grateful for that. Welcome, everybody. I was with some pastors, Lutheran leaders recently, and one of them said, we need some churches that will kind of push out and pioneer, that will go out kind of outside the bounds for us and show us what's possible. And he kind of looked at us as a church that's kind of that pioneering out on the edge. Do you know it's 20 years in September that we will have moved to a former Target retail space? A lot of half our church doesn't even know that. For half our church, it's like normal. Oh yeah, this is it. They don't remember a former building. For a while, it was like, yeah, do you remember the old building? I don't hear that much anymore because it's almost been a generation. So we've always kind of been a pioneering church, and in the ecosystem of churches, we need some that will kind of push and pioneer a bit tonight. So as we talk about Little Antioch, you're maybe familiar with that. The first century church in Antioch was a pioneering church. So Paul and Barnabas were pioneering. They're always pushing from Antioch out to Rome, or Paul always wanted to get to Spain or to North Africa. So it was always pushing out and pioneering. And so in a little way, we say Little Antioch, because in a little way, we want to be a hub and headquarters for the mission of God, just as the first century Antioch. So we're just praying and discovering, what does that look like? Well, sometimes when I hear you all talk about Little Antioch, you're like, well, this is something in the future, way off in the future. I want you to know Little Antioch, first of all, is people. It's more than a place, it's people. Second of all, it's happening already. We're having more and more baptisms, adult baptisms. We are growing more and more multi-generationally and multi-ethnically and culturally. I see Wandamu here tonight with our Christ Memorial Makana Jesus that we launched this fall. Charles and Fafa are here with our African ministry. And so the makeup of our church is just kind of shifting and changing and growing. We have a Sent coordinator moving us more into Sentness. She's in the back. There's Colleen with the youngest member of this assembly. Jordan is back there, who's past her bedtime, but is she sleeping right now? Almost sleeping. Okay, I'll keep talking. It'll put her right to sleep. So Little Antioch is happening already among our people. And so tonight, as we talk a little bit more about place, people live in a place, we want to be good stewards of the place that God has given us, this property and the assets that God has given us. So as Brett mentioned, we contracted LCEF, a ministry partner of ours, to do a highest and best use study. We presented that in November at a voters meeting, just presented the findings of that. We had questions and wanted to know more, and so tonight we have Jonathan Ward with us from LCEF to tell us a little bit more, to walk through a little bit more deeply with that. As we go through, I mentioned in November that I went from confused to curious. So sometimes when you hear multifamily housing, you're like, what does that mean? What does that look like? What does that mean for ministry? And then I got more curious. And so tonight, as you hear from Jonathan, I would just ask that you kind of put your curious ears and eyes and mind open. If you think this is the worst idea ever, I just say just refrain from being negative and be curious. If you think this is the best idea ever and we should do it tomorrow, I actually ask you to step back a little bit and find some really critical questions. That's why we're here, to ask constructively critical questions. So if you just have that posture tonight of curiosity, this is just informational. This is a long process. It doesn't happen overnight, but this is an important step, that we would try to be good stewards of what we have and ask good questions, and then pray and discern what God would have us do. I'm grateful that Jonathan's working with us. We've gotten to know each other in recent months, and he's a trusted partner. He's a Lutheran Christian like you. He's worked in this area. Dana will share a little bit about him, but I'm glad that he's a trusted partner with us tonight. So if you join me in prayer. Lord God, we know that in a family, sometimes there are family meetings like tonight, and there's business to take care of. But at the end of the day, Lord, this is bigger than business. A family is about people and about a mission that you've given to a family. So we pray, Lord, that the business we talk about tonight would ultimately get to the real thing, the mission you have given to us, that more people would know of the love of God in Jesus Christ, that at the name of Jesus, every knee would bow and tongue confess that he is Lord. That's what we want, Lord. And so all of our activity, any strategic plan, any building or budget, it all gets to that end. So, Lord, lead us in that. Give us holy wisdom. Give us open curiosity. Give us good questions, and give us a discerning mind tonight, and not just tonight, but in the days ahead. Lord, we thank you for Jonathan here tonight. Give him skill as he presents to us so we can get the best information possible. And Lord, for the people of God in this place, guide us, bless us, and lead us. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to turn it over to Dana to introduce Jonathan.
Hello, good evening. All right, it is my pleasure to introduce two people we have tonight from LCEF. First is Mike Wadley. Mike, will you stand up, please? Mike's over there, and he serves as our district vice president for the Missouri region here, and through LCEF, Lutheran Church Extension Fund. So we're glad to have Mike with us here. Mike is a member of Zion Harvester. He's a St. Charles guy, so he made the trip inland, but he's a native of the St. Louis area, and we're glad to have him with us. He's been in his role for about 2 years now. Also with us is Jonathan Ward. You'll be hearing from him quite a bit in just a few minutes, and so it's my pleasure to introduce him. Jonathan serves as the Senior Director of the Real Estate Solutions Division for LCEF. It's a newer arm of the Extension Fund, and he'll let you know a little bit more about what the Real Estate Solutions team does, but they're the organization we've partnered with in this first phase of the endeavor here. And so Jonathan, he joined LCEF, it's a newer division, like I said, in 2023 as a real estate development professional with nearly 25 years of experience across public, private, and nonprofit sectors. So he's closed over $250 million in new development financing. He specializes in urban redevelopment and alternative financing models, including historic, new market, and low-income housing tax credits. Jonathan holds a master's in public policy and management from Carnegie Mellon University and a bachelor's in public administration from Grand Valley State University. He studied city planning in Barcelona, Spain, which is a really beautiful city. It's well designed, I would say, and was a Laubel Fellow in Community and Economic Development in Pittsburgh, and he's a Steelers fan. So, there you go. Jonathan, we welcome you.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. I have the fortunate opportunity to do real estate for Jesus. And I didn't even know this was an opportunity until a year or so ago. I was looking for a new opportunity, and this popped up in all places in my inbox from like LinkedIn. And I was like, Lutheran Church Extension. Wait, that's Missouri Synod. Oh my goodness, I can do real estate for the church? And so I joined LCEF a year ago and have just been just honored to have these opportunities to come out and meet my fellow Christians around the country and help you guys find ways to make the best of the assets that you have. We've noticed, in our synod, many churches have excess land. Some churches are closing. There's all these opportunities, and many times churches are land rich but cash poor. And so we're trying to find out ways to unlock the potential under your feet to help support your ministry. How can we expand your ministry? How can we reach more people that they would know Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior? How can we financially monetize that so that the real estate actually supports the work that you're doing and helps pay for it? So we've had to get more creative, and it's just been fantastic for me to be able to work with Pastor Jeff, Dana, Brett, and Jim, and to have a church that's willing to see what could be. A church that's willing to push that envelope and say, we're not just going to sit back and just do what we've always done. We're willing to explore new opportunities. And we need more leaders like you around the country. And I share your story with others when I go out to talk about, you should see what they're doing over there. And the fact that you're willing to consider it and to find those opportunities, I commend you and hope to hold you guys up as an example for others to help them find ways to unlock the potential in their real estate as well, to support the ministry so that more people can know Jesus. So without delay, let me get into the presentation here. I'll show you guys the findings of our phase 1 study and why did we come to the conclusion of multifamily. You know, that seems peculiar. I'll get into that and explain a little bit more detail in it. Just briefly, background on Lutheran Church Extension Fund. Our members, how many folks are familiar with LCEF? Hopefully, most of you are. Very good, excellent. So our members invest with us, and then we invest in our institutions, our churches, our schools, our pastors and teachers to buy homes. And so we don't exist without you. Your investments make our ministry possible to expand more ministries. So thank you for all of your investments with LCEF. So we then make the loans. Then we also have Ministry Solutions, which helps our pastors and our congregations think through, why has God placed us in this place? How can we engage with our community? And then my team, which is coming up on 3 years old, my boss, Tom Campbell, got us started. We're both in Milwaukee, and he is leading the charge and helping our church think, let's not just walk away from our real estate assets. You know, we have, one of my colleagues is embedded in the Pacific Southwest District, and that district is collecting keys on churches at a rate of about 3 or 4 a year. And that's sad. That's really sad. But we figure, why forfeit? Why just sell the land and walk away? Because some of these districts, we could never afford to buy back into it. It's so expensive. So how can we do development there that we can do outreach ministry and continue to do the ministry of Jesus Christ in that place and not just walk away and forfeit? So these are some of the solutions that we're looking for. I'll show you some of the examples of projects that we're in the midst of, and I'll have to express when you say, well, show me a project you've gotten through all the way. Haven't gotten all the way through one yet. Our projects take about a 3-year time period, and we're only 3 years in. So our first ones are just getting close to the point of breaking ground. That being said, as Dana noted, each of us are industry folks. We aren't church people, we're real estate folks. So my colleague Andy is an architect. My colleague Josh is a real estate broker in Orange County. Andy's in Fort Wayne. And then Tom and I both have about 25 and 30 years of experience on the real estate development side. So I do multifamily development, mixed-use commercial redevelopment, and lots of urban infill redevelopment, similar to what you guys have accomplished and done here. So just touched on the team, and then our admin, Dorothy, is right here in St. Louis and keeps us in line. So we have 4 pillars as a mandate. So everything that we do with our real estate needs to meet human need. How can we do something effective that reaches the needs of people in your community? How can we, number 2, how can we do something that pours ministry into that? So we can't do development just for the sake of making money. That's not why the church exists. The church is not in the business of making money. The church is in the business of reaching souls with Jesus Christ and his saving grace for them. So we have to pour ministry into everything that we do and make sure that the expansion of real estate is for the expansion of ministry. Then we need to enhance our communities. We want to leave them better off. How do we make them better off behind us with what we do? And then the financial component. Every ministry needs financial support. And so we are looking for ways to support your ministry with your real estate and create passive income so that you're not directly caught up in the business of handling real estate, but that we work with local partners so they can handle the business aspect of it, and then you can receive the passive income from your investment on it. So those are our 4 pillars and the way that we support you. So just briefly, We do advisory services, so we do feasibility studies, campus master planning, owner's representation services, and then we also do development. So our team is working with a number of developers, many right now in Southern California. We have one in Michigan, one in Northern Illinois, where we're actually working with the developer to help the local congregation invest their real estate to do the development on their land. Right now we have 21 projects in the making. As you could see, there's 5 people on our team. We're looking to add 2 more people here in the year to come. So we're doing 1 church expansion, 5 high schools. There's been a lot more interest in Lutheran schools, as many states have created vouchers. 3 pre-K through 8 expansions, and right now we're working on 9 excess properties. So here's some of the examples of projects that are in the early development planning stages. So Emmanuel Crystal Lake, they're building 230 apartments on excess land. So the church built a school, and they have their worship services in the school building, and then they had 14 extra acres that they are working with a developer called Three Leaf Partners out of Milwaukee, which is co-owned by Pat Connaughton of the Milwaukee Bucks, and Matt Burrow. Matt Burrow owns Catalyst Construction. He's a Wells Lutheran and has been a friend to the Missouri Synod and done a lot of construction and development with us. So we try to find developers who are aligned with our interests, developers that understand that we're doing this for the ministry component of it. Financial is second in that. So we have to find developers that understand who we are as a church and what our teachings are, and that they fully support that. And that was a wonderful find with Matt to be the developer in Crystal Lake. They are looking to break ground in May on these units. They just completed all their rezoning. It had its challenges. A lot of the community came out up in arms against it. Originally it was 320 units, but they worked through it, and that's what developers do. They always look for solutions, work through the obstacles, and find a way to get it done. So there had to be some compromise, some push and pull with the community, and now it's a matter of getting the project to break ground this May. A couple other projects briefly here. Holy Cross Fort Wayne, they have a strip retail shopping center that's kind of Class C space now. It's aging and it's time for something else. So we're looking to do a refresh there, also similar to what you're looking at here, which would be a mixed-use development, a mix of housing and commercial space. And then 2 more, Southern California and Riverside, doing townhouses, and then in Norwalk also doing some townhouses, and LUTEC Vocational High School, a Lutheran vocational high school startup. Let's see, I think they're in their 2nd or 3rd year. That would be a co-tenant on that site. Okay, so I also wanted to give you a couple examples where projects have been completed. So my boss, Tom, has been a member of Hales Corners Lutheran Church all of his life. They developed the top project here, which is Steeple View, and that was a senior living facility. So this was a private development that financially supports the church, and then the church does outreach ministry there. So they actually have a chapel. The pastors from Hales Corners come over a couple times a week and do Bible studies and have chapel there. And then the other one Tom did at Able Light Village. That was 52 senior apartments. Both of these projects are up and running and are a proof of concept. So in these cases, they're senior living. That's not what we're suggesting or proposing for this one, but I wanted to give you an idea of what this might look like or how it might work. Okay, we wanted to incorporate your vision of the Little Antioch. How do we best accomplish what your outreach vision is in ministry to the community? So how do we accomplish that, and how do we pay for it? So these were our driving goals in this. health and wellness, education, and multi-generational ministries. So you'll probably be wondering, well, how do you make the segue from that into multifamily? That's where this is going to be a combined project that's mixed use, so that we can do retail / commercial / community services, and also offer housing. And the housing is the financial engine that helps drive it, but there's also a significant need for housing. Has anybody heard of the national housing crisis? Show of hands, anybody? Does anybody have either themselves or family member having a hard time finding a home? Yeah, it's a real problem, and it's an opportunity for the church to help. But it's a need that the community has, but it's also a way to financially support the overall ministry. So, what do you guys have out there right now? You have 14 acres on the total site, and that's the green line. I don't know if you could quite make that out. Of that, almost 3 acres is a building. You have half an acre for the playground. You have just over 2 acres behind, so a little bit of parking behind there. And then the front parking lot alone is just over 9 acres. So part of what we have to work through is there's an easement with the commercial neighbors that anything that happens on that, you guys are responsible for maintenance, and they have to approve whatever goes on that, because they have cross-parking rights to everything out there. So we have to play nice with our neighbors, because we need to negotiate. In order to do anything, we have to negotiate this easement agreement. Okay, so we were engaged to perform a highest and best use study, look at zoning, some of the what would be physically possible. We did a test fit, how many units could we get out there and still have sufficient parking, incorporate other uses, incorporate some of the commercial community spaces so that you can expand your ministry. And then identify strategies for how to remove the easement and work with the neighbors on that, and then prepare the proposal and the scope for the next phase. There's still plenty we don't know, and that's why we need to go the next phase to figure out, okay, at a very high level, we've done a financial pro forma. We've laid out how many units we think could fit on there. We think that this is achievable. We had some just preliminary high-level discussions with the county planners. They were really receptive to it. The city planners around the country understand the housing crisis that's taking place, and I'll show you a few slides here to help put it in perspective for you. And they really liked the idea of creating a focal point. Sappington doesn't have a downtown, so to create a gathering space, a community focal point, they love that idea. So we're trying to incorporate more of a community gathering space focal point with this that creates a village atmosphere and a destination that people want to go to. Boy, that's really small print. Who made this presentation? Okay. So our recommendations are to do a large development and to do a mix of uses on it. And it's to partner with local developers. So one of the questions that came up through this process when we met with the church council was, why would we develop this with somebody else? Why risk getting into a business development with somebody else? Why not do it ourselves? Well, for one, we're talking tens of millions of dollars of project cost. And you really want somebody else that has the financial balance sheet that can support that has the relationships with equity partners to raise the capital for it, that can put their balance sheet up as a guarantee for the bank loans, and to shield you from some of these risks. and to put up the pre-development expenses. You have to hire architects, engineers, there's geotechnical studies, environmental studies. So the developer takes on that risk to shield you from it, and you also are harnessing their expertise and their relationships. They do this every day. They have these relationships with city planners, with the politicians, to help get the project secured, to get the rezoning secured. So this is why you look to partner with a developer that shares your values, shares your interests, that wants to hold for a long term. You know, some developers want to develop and flip, others want to develop and hold. So obviously, we're looking for someone who wants to hold for the long term. Just touching on the affordability of housing here. You can see these two lines. This is the affordability of the average new lease payment for an apartment here over time. So this starts in 2007, and this goes up through the beginning of 2004. And then this is the affordability of a new mortgage for a home. So you can see when interest rates spiked, housing affordability just went through the roof. So many people can't afford to go get their new home right now, which means more people need apartments and will for a while. This chart illustrates it further. So the median housing payment right now in the United States is $3,000, and that's up a month. That's up 20% from what it was 2 years previously. The income needed to afford that is $117,000. The median U.S. income is only $73,000. So the shortfall is $43,000 a year in order to afford the median priced home in the United States. This is the number of new housing starts. So the blue line on the top is single-family homes in the United States. Let's see, this starts in, this is 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010, and 2020. The bottom one is multifamily starts. And you could see that it's gone down, and then it just flatlined. So the Great Recession is that big tipping point, and you can see we never recovered. We never rebounded after the Great Recession. New housing starts have not kept up with population growth, which leads to this problem. So I'll for this side of the room, I'll come over here. Pardon me a second. So this is, zero would be an even market, where there's not excess demand, there's not excess supply. The beginning here is 1990, 2000, 2010, and then 2022. So everything in the orange area is a housing deficit. Right now, the US is 3.2 million housing units short of meeting our housing needs. 82% of homeowners have mortgages that are locked in at 5% or under. So you've got a whole bunch of people that don't want to move. Why would you? Like, that's the best thing you have going for you is a really low interest rate. And to refinance today, you'd be at 7%. So most people don't want to move. We have new home builders not building. We have new multifamily builders not building enough. And you've got the perfect storm. This is why we have a housing crisis nationwide. So how does this relate to St. Louis? Well, you're not exempt from it. It's happening here too. In fact, the Wall Street Journal 4 weeks ago just said a story of Kalamazoo, Michigan, my home state. The housing crisis has hit middle America. We expected this stuff on the coasts, you know, super high prices, but now it's happening in middle America too. So we're not exempt from that here in St. Louis. Missouri saw the steepest rent increases in the nation last year. This was an article done last year, so this was saying the previous year, at the end of 2023. but this is why there's a need. All right, so let's talk about the plan and what we might be able to accomplish here. So we did a test fit, and I'll talk you through this, and then I know this is small. I've zoomed in on these sections in the subsequent slides. So first of all, I just wanted to give you the overall look at it. So here is your church. Here's the incredible pizza company spaces, and then Fitz's and the Outback here. And this is your open parking lot. Here's the bank in front. And what we're proposing is 2 mixed-use buildings, 3 stories of multifamily over some retail/community space on the ground level, and then doing a small retail/community service space outside of that. Then creating some community green space. This, as I said, is what got the city planners excited. This is where maybe you could host bands on Friday nights. You could invite the community out. More ways to engage your community and to enhance your quality of life here. And then some amenities to add for your existing ministries. So you have a daycare where the kids play on the asphalt here. This would turn much of that asphalt and bump it out and create a green space for your daycare so that there's more play area and more natural area for the kids to play on. And then just doing a reconfiguration of some of the parking, and then expanding some of that green space and creating a community focal point. This building would have some of that mixed use in it as well. So you've got a mix of uses: community engagement, retail, community services, whether this is health, wealth, well-being, and the like. All depends on who we want to market this to. Who are the right tenants to fill these spaces? That's part of what we need to figure out, see where the demand is, and how they can complement your ministry here at Christ Memorial. So one of the things we need to be mindful of is making sure we maintain enough parking. It sounds like one of the concerns that caused you to move here in the first place was that you were landlocked and that you didn't have enough parking. So we have to be aware of and mindful that we don't put you right back in the same problem that you had 20 years ago that moving here solved. So we added up all of the users here and then how much parking would be required. 684 would be needed, and typically the zoning requirement for the amount of parking, those tend to run high. Seldom do we find those to be short, and I did retail development for many years, so oftentimes the city code requirement was sufficient parking for us. We as retailer developers didn't go over the city code. We didn't look to exceed that. We are providing 787. So what you see here incorporates 787. So we have more than would be required by the code. So we believe that we're retaining ample parking. And another important part of this is complementary times and uses. So housing typically needs the parking at night, whereas retail needs it during the day. The church needs it predominantly nights and weekends. A lot of the retail or community users often need it during the day and off times. So a lot of the parking can be shared because you're using it at different times. So creating the Little Antioch, we're not proposing any particular use yet. We're saying this is the space that we'd make available, and then we'd go market it to find the right users that accomplish your goal, that support your ministry. But we also have to find tenants that pay the bills, that can support the cost of new construction to make this work financially. So it's a matter of finding the tenants that work with the mission, but also pay the bill. This is a 3D view of it, just to give you an idea of what the massing might be. I'll go back just a second here. One of the things we wanted to maintain was a buffer off of the north property line to pull this back. We don't want these tall buildings right up against residential neighbors, so we pull it back so that it's not imposing over the neighbors. All right, this is a zoomed in view of it. So a mixed use corridor building, 3-story, this would have 48 units, then 60,000 gross square feet. 4,000 of it could be retail and a community center with green spaces. And then we put this connection with the church here that this could be shared green spaces. So the idea being, you know, it's it's Sunday morning, it's Easter, people want to gather, you want to do something outside, you have green spaces right within close proximity to the front entrance of the church so that people gather, people mingle, they spend time together. There's more places for community interaction to take place. All right, these are just ideas of similar types of projects and what this could look like. So this is just to give you an idea of potential massing of the project and some of the aesthetics of local projects that could be used as examples of what you might see out here. Same with this. So 3-story buildings, we're not recommending towers or anything imposing, casting a shadow over neighbors and the like. This is considered moderate density. Okay, so why would we develop housing? As I've mentioned, the housing need is acute right now nationwide, and that's happening here in St. Louis as well. But housing is also a relatively stable asset class. Housing is a need-based asset class. Everybody needs housing. They don't need offices. They don't have to have retail, but they have to have a place to live. So there's much more stability in it as a class. So if you're going to be invested in it, we encourage multifamily as an investment class. And some of the largest institutional investors in the country have just made huge investments in multifamily in the last year. So many are flocking to it for its stability in a time of volatility. It also has lower default rates because it's need-based. We've already talked about the need for housing. The high interest rates are making single family much harder to attain right now. And it's also an inflation hedge because unlike office, you enter office for 5-year or longer fixed terms. Multifamily resets every year. So you're not locked into lease terms. So it adjusts with inflation. So what might rent look like? So I pulled up 2 examples locally to give you just an idea. This one's an older project nearby. 1 bedrooms are 1,100, 2 bedrooms are 1,300. This was built in '86. This, obviously being a much older project, rents would be north of this. This is the newest product in the market, probably the highest rents right now. This is the residences at Tesson Ridge. That was what was the former commercial user? MetLife, thank you. Yep, that was the MetLife offices that have been converted into these apartments. And rents range from $2,000 for a 1-bedroom to $3,500 for a 3-bedroom. Political support. So whatever you do on the site is going to require a rezoning, and that's going to require us to negotiate with political leaders to get rezoning. We're going to need to win over neighbors. We're going to need to educate and explain the project to neighbors. So we'd host open houses, but this is also where your development partner is going to be key because they will have those relationships and have the know-how to get it done. City planners are accustomed to working with certain developers. They know how they work. They have a certain trust with them, and the developers know how to get that done. We'll also need to to discuss it with the school district to make sure that they understand the intent is to bring in new students, but also a new tax base. Right now, they don't receive tax base on it in the community, and I'll show you here in a moment, but what we just showed, we project would create $200,000 of new tax base for the community. So we think that there's sufficient reason for the community to support it. So why might the community want to support it? So aging commercial corridors lose their value over time, and once it starts to slip quickly. So as it ages, vacancy rates rise, rents start to stagnate, and then your tax base starts to dwindle. So we want to be proactive and act while we still can, leverage the assets that we have, leverage the strength of the community. Right now, this is a strong community, but it's an aging community. And so we have to be vigilant to continue to reinvest and redevelop to maintain our tax base. And then also, you have a good reputation in the community. The community I would anticipate, and the argument should be made, this helps us serve more people. This helps us do more good in our community. So help us help our community. This is some of the arguments that we would make to help gain support for it. I touched on this earlier, so I won't belabor this too long, but the development partner shields you from a lot of the risk in it. They also bring a lot of the financial backing to it. And then what do we do, though, if the developer wants to sell? So that's a possibility. So up front, as I said, we find a developer that is aligned with your interests, a developer that wants to do a long-term hold, but we'll also work to negotiate with them for certain rights for you so that you have the ability to approve a buyer, and or first rights of refusal to buy out the developer, depending on financial circumstances at that time, how much is the debt paid down, et cetera. But there are ways to advance your needs in this to help mitigate some of that risk. Okay, at the phase two, I'm going to touch on just the scope of it here in a second, but part of what we want to be able to do is to rethink some of your existing space. How can we better use the space that you have and next door with IPC? If IPC isn't there, how might we use that space and expand some of your ministry into that space as well? So we'll include architectural services to help us rethink this. Like, what's the best use of your existing space? What's the best use of expanding into that to expand and promote your ministry? All right, I just want to touch briefly on this. The parking lot is going to need some TLC. What might that look like? Well, it depends on the extent of the work that needs to be done. If it's just a light resurfacing, numbers are coming in somewhere between 1 million and 1.4, depending on how much of it is done. So this would be the all-in number for all of it. So if we just did the area, the cost to resurface the new area, it's $350,000 or $460,000. But if the sub parking needs to be replaced and we have to do a full rebuild, it gets a little more expensive. So the limited area would be $570,000 versus $1 million. And if we had to reconstruct the entire parking lot, scrape it, and start over, we're looking at 1.7 to 3 million. All right, development benefits to you. First and foremost, to expand ministry. We work with our development partners to make sure that the ministries that they work with have access to the community rooms so that they do outreach ministry, they do Bible studies in there, similar to what I showed you with the senior center at Hales Corners Lutheran. The pastors are there 2 and 3 times a week doing Bible studies and hosting chapel service at the center. Then community services. Adding uses, physical therapy, for example, urgent care and or social service providers, ways that engage your community and support the Little Antioch vision of health and wellness for your community. Financial, what might this look like? So we're estimating your land might be worth somewhere between 1.1 and 2 million in equity contribution into the development, and that you should expect somewhere between a 6 and an 8% annual cash-on-cash return on that. So I'm not talking about any of the equity growth over time. This is just your annual returns on your investment. So that would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000 to $160,000 a year of passive income off of just the land value. Now, could you guys invest more into it? Of course. I'm sure a developer would be thrilled if you guys wanted to actively invest more than just the land. But that's all up for negotiation and up to you to decide. And then what I like is that you're turning what's currently a potential liability and I'll make one caveat with that. You are renting it to store vehicles right now for car places and making some income on that. But you're turning what's right now a liability into a cash producing asset. So it's flipping it from a liability into an asset that's helping you. All right, this takes time. These developments take 3 to 4 years, so this takes patience. We have to spend a year figuring out what does this look like, who's our partner, financially modeling it, doing the planning, securing rezonings and local approvals. So that's 1 year's worth of time just to do that. Then it's 1 to 2 years to actually build it, and then you need a year to fill it up. So before you're going to see the first dollar of cash flow for it, we're going to be 3 to 4 years out. So I just ask for your patience in the process. Just keep in mind, this takes a while, and we're planting seed for a harvest several years in the future. All right, so next steps would be to negotiate with the neighbors to work out the easements. We're going to say it's in their own best interest to have this as a thriving shopping center. It's not in their interest to watch this dwindle and deteriorate. So we will work with them. Our phase 2 proposal, one thing I did not add to the slide I mentioned to you, remember, will be architectural services to help you rethink this space and the IPC space. Then we'll do a request for proposals to developers, find out who would be interested in being your development partner, and then start vetting them, having conversations, making sure that they understand who you are, that they aren't just willing to acquiesce to your ministry, but more so that they want to support your ministry, that they care about people knowing Jesus as their Savior. That's who we want to be engaged in this. So we'll rank them, we'll determine cultural match, we'll negotiate land value and development agreement terms, and then we'll evaluate financial models and make sure that it's giving you the sufficient returns, and then start talking about their vision for it, making sure that it corresponds with the Little Antioch vision that you have to support and engage your community. That's all I have.
Jonathan, at this point in time, we're just going to take, excuse me, got something in my throat. At this point in time, we're going to take a 5-minute break just to digest what we've heard. We encourage you guys to talk to your neighbors for 5 minutes. If you did take a half sheet when you walked in, there's 2 questions. One is sort of a critical analysis question. What is a critical question you would ask for us? And then another is maybe what's something positive that you noticed or a positive thought that you had. So take a look at that half sheet, talk amongst yourself, 5 minutes, and then we're going to open it up for a Q&A after 5 minutes, okay? All right, thank you guys. All right, thank you, everybody. Sorry, that was more like 10 instead of 5. But now that you guys have had a chance to mingle a little bit, talk amongst yourselves, we just want to go ahead and open it up for a Q&A. We would ask that folks who want to ask questions just come up and grab the microphone. We think that'd be easier than going around passing it around. So if you guys do have questions, please feel free to come up and take the mic, and I'll stall until we get our first one. Don't fight over it now.
A couple questions. When you mentioned the asphalt, you used the word "we." Is that us paying for that?
I'm sorry, when I mentioned.
You used the word "we" when you talked about the cost of the resurfacing everything. That's "we" as Christ Memorial.
Yeah.
Okay. I must have missed. I had to step out. I got a phone call. Sorry, but who gets the rent? Where is the rent going?
Rent goes to the real estate owner,
The owner.
and you would be a part owner. You would
Okay.
have equity share in that LLC.
Okay. Okay. How does that work? What part of that is going to be our
So let-
expense?
Let's say,
Because it's on our property?
yes.
Okay.
So your property would go into a LLC. They would purchase the property, and then they would value it with an appraisal.
Got it.
And let's say it's worth $1 million. And let's just say it's a $10 million project. It'll be
Okay.
more than that, but.
Right.
So then you have $1 million of a $10 million project, you have 10% ownership.
Okay.
Sure. Does
All
that
right.
make sense?
Got it. For Pastor, is there going to be a giving drive for our church?
Do you want there to be?
Um,
Good question. So let's just separate, there's two things going on here. By the way, we have a lot to manage. So if what Jonathan's talking about tonight is just the underutilized parking lot space, we also have 60,000 square feet to assess that we have a tenant with currently. I would suggest that if we do something creative ministry-wise in that space, that's where we would want to, that's where the people of God would want to invest. I think it would be very difficult to do a capital campaign for $25 million to develop that parking lot out there. So that's where this is interesting, because it gives a creative partnerships that can get something done, and we don't have to have a capital campaign. We're not going to have a capital campaign
Okay.
to develop multifamily.
Good. The only other question is, I didn't see any pickleball courts up there.
I put them in my last development, I promise
that-
you.
okay,
It just opened,
okay.
yes. Good point.
So you mentioned Tesson Ridge redevelopment. In addition to that, Crestwood Mall recently did that. Chesterfield Mall is undergoing that. The Bayer Monsanto campus, half of that is going to be redeveloped into mixed use. There's talk of even South County Mall being mixed use. All of these are considerably bigger than what we are doing.
Yeah.
How can we be competitive? Would we be competitive against something several projects much larger than ours?
So we would need to do a market study. We would hire a third-party independent market study provider to prove out our expectation that this would work. So before we would proceed, we would want that market study to say, yes, given all of these competitors in the market, there is sufficient demand to fill your product, and then they'll actually project to us how long they think it'll take to lease that up, given everything that you just mentioned, all the competition in the market, because no developer wants to put millions of dollars on the line
Right.
without some sort of
Confidence.
confidence, thank you, that it's going to work
Right.
out. So yes, that's how we would make sure that there's confidence that there's actually a market for it with the competition coming
Okay.
online.
And then would Christ Memorial have any say in who the retail commercial tenants might be? So in case there's somebody that we might take
Yeah.
objection with
Yeah,
that wants to move in.
massage parlor or the like, yeah.
Right.
Yes, so we would negotiate that in the development agreement up front. That, and I'm going to make a caveat and say two things here. Commercially, we can market it to the commercial tenants that we want, and we can negotiate with the developer to make sure that, we're going for certain types of tenants, and we can just say flat out, we don't want certain types of commercial users. That's just not keeping with who we are as the church. That being said, on the housing side, there are fair housing laws
Right.
that we can't say, well, only certain types of people are allowed to live here.
Right.
We can't market it to certain types of people and not other.
Right,
We have to be fair
I was
on
more
that.
focused on
Okay.
the
So
retail,
I just,
commercial.
but I
'cause
want everyone to
know-
hear that
I know
too.
housing would be a whole different set of regulations and stuff.
There are already some provisions and protections in the operating easement agreement that's in place that we share with our neighbors right now. And so there are quite a few prohibited uses already, and those we would continue those.
Okay, and then are there any time commitments where we have to, we're on board for 10 years or 25 years, or if we decide that this just isn't working out for us?
Yeah, we could work into the agreement a buyout clause to give you guys the option to exit if you wanted to. I've heard more the opposite, like how do we buy in
Right.
if the developer
Right.
wants to exit? But we could do the inverse of that and have a buyout clause if you just decide, we're no longer interested in being a part of this.
Yeah, yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Both of my questions refer to the commercial side. When you came up with the proposal, was there any notion at all that just residential without commercial would not work? Was it completely out of the question?
It was not completely out of the question, but we also wanted to incorporate more opportunities for community engagement to accomplish the Little Antioch vision. So we wanted to incorporate more ways to serve your community.
Okay, and second question is, you mentioned that around here the commercial developments are aged. How long does it take for a new commercial development like we are proposing to become aged?
2 years.
That's what I thought.
It's fast.
So that's at risk right away, right?
Yes, things reach functional obsolescence in snap of a finger nowadays. It's part of the reason why we like multifamily development, because going back to there's always a need for it. Whereas, so retail space, such as the former retail space you're sitting in right now, current retailers don't want a space that is this deep. So old shopping centers that have these really deep bays, the new retailers don't want it. They want a narrow, thin space, and so it's already functionally obsolete. So the fact that more of this space is multifamily helps hedge some of the risk of it becoming functionally obsolete. So you're still going to need to do refreshes on the multifamily. Every 10 years, it needs to have a facelift if you want to maintain a nice community. You can't just let it age. And carpets you got to do every 3 to 5 years. But that's part of why I'd prefer to see you go in the direction of multifamily than just going commercial, because commercial is fickle, extremely, extremely fickle.
Hey, how's it going? So a few questions kind of about some of the things you've talked about. So it kind of seems like we're doing like a partnership LLC, like an equal, okay, so does that mean liabilities, like legal liabilities, who actually deals with that when something like, if there's a tenants union, or if there's a fire, or if there's, who's responsible for that primarily?
Yeah, the developer would face those responsibilities. They would They would be responsible for the loan, they'd be putting up the guarantees for the loan, and they have the legal responsibilities as the general partner. So what we're recommending for you is to be a limited partner, so you don't have the responsibilities of running it, hiring the property manager, handling the asset management, the K-1 reporting to all the investors and the like. So the general partner developer would be facing that risk. Your risk would be limited as a limited partner.
Okay. Okay, perfect. And what else do I have? Oh, so we're equity partners. Does that mean that individual members of the church, like I don't know if we're as a church probably going to put up a few million, the major equity partner is probably going to put up most of it. Can individual members put in money? Like could I put in $10,000 and get an equity position in this?
Quite possibly. So there are certain SEC rules on who can invest in it, and you have to be a qualified investor. Investors have to have a certain net worth and a certain income in order to be qualified investors to protect people from investing in something they don't understand. So it would depend on that, and the developer would handle those investment relations. But yes, it would be open to general investments from qualified investors.
Okay, perfect. And then in terms of, you talked about bidding out to engineering and contracting services for people who kind of meet our sort of relationship goals, sort of our culture and that sort of thing. Are we allowed to recommend people? I know some engineers who've worked down south in a lot of Lutheran projects who have built my high school that I went to as a Lutheran high school. So I know they could probably do at least some of the work. I could ask them. I don't know if I'm allowed to submit a bid or anything or.
Yeah, no, we will be soliciting those bids. Now, we're going to start with an RFP for the right development partner. The development partner is going to take the lead on who do we engage on the architectural side, engineering side. But definitely, we want to say, hey, we'd like to consider, these two are architects. We think they're qualified for it, and put their name in the ring for it, have them compete for the work. But yes, we would want to get recommendations to the developer for folks that we think are aligned with our vision for this.
Okay. And also kind of on the engineering question, so you've done, the zoning's going to have to be a thing we fight through and that sort of thing. What about, nuts and bolts, the utility lines and everything that goes underneath, the water, the sewer? Is that all hooked up properly at that end of the parking lot to actually support a living facility of this size?
We'll have to upgrade utilities, and that'll be a project expense to make sure that everything is will reach the needs of the new density being installed. So that might mean an upgrade in electric and the like, but that's part of the project expense.
Okay. Is that part of, you're talking about the resurfacing of the lot and we might have to go underneath? Is that something we'd look at during that phase, or is that more down the line after we get through doing the lot?
Well, Dana, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the hope would be to do this in lieu of redoing the lot. Like, let the lot just sit there until we can get it redeveloped so that you don't have to make this big investment and then 6 months later tear it up.
Okay.
And then if we could wrap the smaller portion, because at this point, we wouldn't have as many acres of just sole parking lot. I think we could maybe look to wrap it in at that point, but do it all at once. You get a better price when you wrap things in together.
There you go. Okay. Okay, I've been here too long. So.
Great questions, great questions. Also, we're soliciting $24 million investments right now. No, I'm just, yeah, go. We'll just get this thing funded tonight.
Okay, I'm trying to make this simple for some of us. We have parking lots out there that we are not using. And what you're proposing is to come up with the engineer and the architect. No money is going to be coming from Christ Memorial to move on with this project, right?
That's right.
So we're in the clear. We don't have to pay anything.
Other than my fees. To do the phase 2 planning and help do the RFP for developers.
We have to
and the
pay
like.
you.
Yes, you have to pay me.
LCEF, yeah, we don't give
And
Jonathan a check.
what is just an estimate of what that would be.
So the phase 2 engagement's 24,000, and that's to go find the development partner and to vet them.
Well, they can come up with that. I think that's my only.
But to your broader point, the developer takes on the pre-development expenses, from this point on, engaging the architect and all that. The plans that I showed you, those concept plans, was part of the phase 1 that you paid for. We engaged an architect to put those together, just to come up with the idea. But going forward, that would be all the developer's expense and risk.
I look around and I see Laclede Village and I see the beautiful retirement community out at Arnold. And I look at this crowd and I think that I wondered if a retirement type situation was looked into and where that fell on the priority of best use.
It's a possibility. Let's put it that way. So as we go out to the marketplace for requests for proposals from developers, we may get some responses from developers that propose senior housing. And, I would defer to you and the leadership team here at the church if that's a direction that you would want to go. But that's a possibility.
Okay, have you contacted, or are the people who helped develop Laclede and these other Lutheran-type retirement communities, are they available for help on who their contractors were and their architects and developers and so forth are? And would that be a possibility? Would they not work under the same kind of rules that we do, where we want, I forget the term, the mutually acceptable type people? Would that be a resource for us to talk to those people who develop
Absolutely.
those? Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Harold.
Great questions so far.
Thanks for being here. So you gave us some national information on housing crisis. You also gave us a headline from the Wall Street Journal for Missouri. Is there any local analysis that's been done to show that if there is a true housing crisis in South St. Louis County, certainly prices are up, and you showed a range of rent going from an aged property of $1,000 to a new property of $3,500 all per month? But and granted, I understand we sit in Lindbergh School District, which should be attractive as well. But is there a true analysis that's shown that occupancy would not have an issue, and is that something that a developer is going to look at as well?
That's where having a developer engaged is paramount. They know the market. They're out there every day doing this. So if we do an RFP and the response is crickets, we might have our answer. Exactly. So we believe from a high level, it appears there seems to be demand and a need. Now it's time to dig a little bit deeper. Let's go talk to local developers. What are they hearing? What are they seeing? And then ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, then it's time to get a market study done to prove it out. So each step we go in this, we do a little bit more fact-finding and due diligence so that we make sure that all of this risk isn't taken on and just be caught flat-footed and find out, there was nothing there. So no developer is going to put their balance sheet up on the line for a pipe dream.
Great questions. And just to clarify too, this housing, these units are going to be at market rates. And how that helps that crisis, it helps from a supply side, right? Right now, supply is really low and demand is really high. How can we help? Well, we can bring more housing onto the market and help the supply side. So we're not talking necessarily like cheap rents, low rents. We're talking market rents that are fair, but also help ease the burden on the housing supply side right now.
Hey, thanks for coming. At our little Antioch forum, I was the one who was like, please do something with the parking lot. So I'm happy to hear this conversation. South Lindbergh, from a traffic standpoint, it's kind of a mess. How would you guys approach the aspect of dropping in, more commercial and, 200 housing units right here and the reaction that may have from a traffic standpoint?
Yeah, great question. we'll have to do a traffic study.
Yeah. What part of the process does that come? Would that be after the developer, probably? I don't know how it goes in the city.
It's
hard
going
to
to be,
count.
it's going to be part of the public approval process. So this next stage, it's, let's find a development partner. And then once we've secured a development partner, then it's time to get into securing municipal approvals, rezonings, and as a part of the rezoning and municipal approval, they're going to require us to do a traffic study. That's when this would happen. So before we could get entitlements from the community, we'd have to do that. And that'll come back and tell us, you know, you need to add a traffic lane or something like that as a part of your project cost. So there may be some public improvements that we'll have to put on the public streets or the lights in the intersection and the like that are a part of the project cost for this as well. Mhm. Good question, thank you.
I think Forrest had a question.
I was involved with Crestwood and their redevelopment. And I don't know if anybody's seen the houses that they built over there behind Crestwood Mall. Has anybody seen those houses? Well, to me, I wouldn't want those houses. But they were standing in line waiting to sign the contract for them. They couldn't sell them fast enough. I think you'd be better off to have individual houses. Also, we have a church down Tesson Ferry, Concord Church, that has the same situation, much smaller scale. They had property that they wanted to sell, and they turned it into houses. And the county wouldn't let them do anything else except houses. And I think that's going to probably change. But I think the best use is if you can get the price down for houses between $350,000 and $400,000. I think they'll sell like crazy. And indication is off of Union Road, there have been several developments, and they're all sold out. That's the market. I don't think people really want to spend $3,000 for an apartment. I mean, some do, yeah. But I think that's the market.
Good evening. I might have been missing some of this. I got here a little bit late when I came straight from work. So excuse me if I missed some of this stuff. But are you going to be sending out this material that you presented tonight?
I can share it.
I mean, we got a large group here from the congregation, but it's not the entire congregation, obviously. And you want to get a full support from a larger group. And typically with this type of situation, you get some feedback, but you might not have the full, honest majority feedback that you might need to get into this whole project. You talked a lot about upgrades to lots and other costs. So maybe I'm duplicating the question, but who pays for that?
The developer.
The developer.
Yep.
Not the church.
Yep, not the church.
Now, we came from a situation where we were landlocked. We had no room for people to park. We had moved a service to Lutheran South in order to alleviate the traffic issue. And it alleviated the traffic issue, but it didn't much for our fellowship. So we separated the congregation at the time and realized when we moved to a new area, we wanted to have a large enough space, not only the sanctuary itself, but also the parking lot. It sounds like if you're going to have a return on investment, you're going to need to devote a large enough space to that particular situation. So I'm wondering if we're moving back into the situation where we're going to be giving up a large portion of that parking lot and getting back to that same type of situation. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so one of the schools and churches I worked with early on said, well, what if you do the highest and best use study and that's not the best thing for us? I said, well, then it's not the highest and best use. Because it's only the highest and best use if it's the highest and best use for you. So you own this parcel. We only develop the amount that works for you. If it's insufficient parking for you, then we scale it back. We have to make sure that we put your needs first in what we develop out there, because we're not going to develop something out there that then immediately puts you in a bind here that you can't have your services here in the church. It only acts as an ancillary use if we have excess. So it appears that there's quite a bit of excess out there. So it looks like we can accomplish something with new development to use the excess parking and not minimize the amount of parking that you need here. But if it's too much, then we have to scale it back and help the developer understand we have to maintain sufficient amounts of parking.
So what do you see as a time frame for getting all of these questions answered, the assessment, the surveys, the county, and all the other traffic things that need to be resolved?
Yeah.
Do you have an idea about the time frame for that?
So due diligence for a project usually takes a year. So we would need to find a development partner. We would hope that if we got started on that this spring, that by this summer, we've found our partner. And then we have to go meet with the county. We have to engage the environmental study. We have to engage the geotechnical study, make sure the soil compacting is sufficient and the like. All of that process usually takes about a year.
And you're saying all of that expense, whatever that happens to be, is not going to be a liability for our congregation?
Correct. What we're proposing to the developer is we'll contribute the land as silent equity into the project. We're not looking to engage and pay for this. You're paying for it on our land, and we're just going to contribute the land as our equity into the project. The developer likes that because instead of having an anxious seller that's saying, hurry up and give me my money, he has a patient seller that's saying, hey, we're not going to force you to close in 60 days to buy the property and shell out huge amounts of money to buy the property. We could say, no, mind you, we want to get a developer to have skin in the game. Like, if you're going to do this with us, you're going to need to put down some deposits to show good faith and to keep them from walking away.
Well,
like,
obviously,
oh, sorry.
yeah, they want their return on investment, no doubt
Right.
about it.
But you keep them honest by making them put deposits down on the property. But it also gives them the ability to take a little bit of a longer time frame because we're not saying you have to hurry up and close on the land. Does that help?
Okay, so will you be doing an assessment of what combination of buildings, commercial, residential, apartments, single family, or whatever, would provide the return, and different combinations of those different situations as far as your assessment and evaluation?
Yeah, some of that we already did in the first phase. The reason why we came up with the plan that we did is because it gives you the financial returns that you need while still maintaining the parking that you need. We did look at single family as an option. The amount that can be paid for the number of single family housing units that you can get is pretty de minimis. The other thing that we like about doing development with ongoing leases is that instead of a one-time shot in the arm infusion of cash with a sale, it's ongoing income for years and years to come. What we found is too often our churches will sell excess land. They'll have 5 years of cash, and then 5 years later, they have nothing to show for it. So we're trying to create a long-term stream of cash flow for you for years to come.
What's the benefit to LCEF in this
What's the
project?
benefit? Oh, well,
I mean, what is your involvement other than your evaluation?
sure. We're getting there. We're working now, one, to look at opportunities. Could we participate in lending on these real estate projects? That's something that LCEF is looking into. And then also LCEF is looking at opportunities. Could we be an equity investor in these projects as well? Is that an opportunity? We're not there yet, but stay tuned. We're working on that.
Okay, I appreciate all that. It just seems like to me that you'll need a large enough space allocated in order to get the return on investment
To get a critical
that you're
mass.
really looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
I may be wrong, I might be way off, but I'm not a commercial developer, obviously, but it just seems like that's what would take. That's my concern.
Yeah.
About allocating that much space and constricting our opportunities or our use of that property here.
Well, given the space limitations of the building, that's how they come up with the parking requirements. So given the size building you have, that's how they project how much parking you'll need.
Right.
And that's how we came up with the parking calculation to show that we have, I don't know, it's just shy of 100 excess spaces. And then we think between the times of use between the various users. So when Incredible Pizza, I'm just using them as an example because they're there today as a commercial user, their prime times are in the evening when the use of the church isn't needed that much. And vice versa. When you have prime use, they don't have their prime use. So there's a lot of benefits to having that shared parking that if you were all meeting at the same time, you'd have a problem. But that's typically not the case because you have staggered parking needs.
Well, we have a 5 o'clock service on Saturday evening, so that might
So
be,
that's
you know,
interferes.
a little bit of a conflict there.
I can comment just a little bit on the parking counts as well. Jonathan's numbers in his analysis said, I think it was just shy of 800 parking spots that would be total on the lot. Right now, our parking lot is angled parking, and it's laid out very inefficiently. You gain, if you saw the drawing, this was a more creative use of space, and these were a different configuration for parking. And so we have about 900 spots right now, and so this is only about 120-ish, you know, fewer parking spots, even with taking up a significant portion for the development. So it's a better use of space than how it's laid out right now.
I know this is very early on, but you really don't have an accurate or a detailed footprint in that we're considering. It's going to be kind of open to the evaluation and all that. So that whole
That's a great point.
actual space
Yeah.
that's actually going to be used is still to be determined.
It's still to be, thank you, that's an excellent point. This is a concept. It's a concept. What could fit? It's a test fit. What could fit? And if we could get that on there, do a quick financial model of that with the going rents in the area, some assumptions on operating expenses, is this feasible? So it's an initial go, no-go at this phase.
Okay.
At this point. So whoever the developers are, they're going to shape this a lot. They're going to come back and say, well, you guys really need to think about making it more like this or like that. We recommend, you know, changing this. And so absolutely. What you saw up there is not ultimately what's going to get built, because whoever comes in is going to shape that and mold it. This is just a test fit to say, yes, there's sufficient belief that this is worth pursuing further.
Okay, understood. To be determined. Thank you.
Determined. Thank you.
I think that's actually a great segue, Jonathan, just real quick into what the Phase 2 deliverables would look like should we proceed forward with Phase 2. What would the deliverables be for Phase 2 if we say, hey, let's go to Phase 2?
Yeah, the Phase 2 deliverables would be a recommendation with developers and who to partner with developers. And our hope is that we would get sufficient response from the development community, that we'd have a developer that we would like to pursue entering into a memorandum of understanding with. A memorandum of understanding is just a high-level agreement on business terms in order to proceed into negotiations to enter into a business agreement, into a partnership agreement. So the deliverable would be to have done the RFP, to have vetted the developers that responded to that, to give you recommendations on which developers to proceed with, and hopefully, if that all goes well, that we can culminate that with an MOU that you enter into a memorandum of understanding with the development partner.
And before we would proceed any further with the development, we would need an approval for like a Phase 3 to actually break ground and all of that.
Yes, so then Phase 3 would be us to work on your behalf as an owner's rep, to negotiate, to work with the developer to make sure that they're going through the entitlements, and to handle the relationship between you and them to make sure that they are proceeding. And that's what I'm doing for Emmanuel Crystal Lake right now.
Perfect.
I don't really have a question, just a suggestion. You know, looking at your little diagram is nice. Could we put something out in the parking lot when the snow melts to give us an idea of how close all that building
Yeah,
is going to
sure.
be to this building?
Spray paint the,
Just put little markers out there in the parking lot or something?
yeah, we could
I mean,
just,
just to get an overall view of like, oh gee, this is really close to our building. Maybe we don't want 3 stories this close. I think would be helpful.
sure, yep, that's something we could work on. I'm gonna need to add 1,000 to the phase 2 proposal for that though.
Oh, wait a second, after 1.
Thank you so much. This is a little Antioch. I think it is good to hear different accents. I have 2 questions. The first one is related with the project. Who will value the land value?
A independent third-party appraisal would be done. So the
Okay.
bank is gonna require a third-party appraisal as a part of the loan. So that appraisal would determine the land value.
Okay. The second question is, I think for the church, this project is the outcome of the Little Antioch vision. I understand this project accomplishes the Little Antioch vision by giving an opportunity to access the community or to bring the community, but can we say, or can we allocate the passive income of this project as a mission fund for a Little Antioch? Because the nature of the Little Antioch is sending out the missionaries to the end of the world. Can we officially, or the outcome of this project will be allocated as a mission fund?
Thank you, Wandamu. All right, so what Wandamu was saying is, whatever, if something like this would happen, and there's income, how will we use it? The church, that's a conversation we have to have. What Wandamu is suggesting is that we that we send it away. That's what he was suggesting. So that's selfless and a commitment. 2 ministry things. One is, when we moved here 20 years ago, I know some of the language that like Pastor Greg would use is we want to be on Main Street, South County. We want to be in the middle of people, not tucked away. And it's put us here. We have people, our building is used 7 days a week, and that was by design. And we want to continue to do that same trajectory. One way that I could see having hundreds of neighbors just across the parking lot would be, we would be in the middle of a community. And so we can toy with what are the ministry aspects. As Jonathan said, we're not in this for money primarily, but for ministry. What puts us in proximity to people? What brings people in more? And so, there's that component to look at. And then on top of the income that would come. So Wandamu, you're right. We would have to decide what mission do we use the margin for. Mr. Chairman, if I can, I'm looking at these people, and for some of us, it's getting close to our bedtime. So I think this is a lot of information to digest. We're grateful that Jonathan came here. As you all are kind of understand, this is a process. Yeah, let's give a hand.
Thank you.
This doesn't happen with just one meeting. And just so you know, there's no vote tonight. There's no pressure to do anything. We have to walk around this a few times. I think that we have to pay attention to it because we together are called to be stewards of this property. And so we want to do the best we can with what we've been given, and that means some hard work. Just like you do at your house, you do an evaluation, you look at what projects you need to do, you work hard on that. So we need to work hard on that too. What I'm hearing from Jonathan is we can't know really any more about this. I've kind of looked at as much as I can look at without knowing what the next step would be. My recommendation, just as your pastor, would be to engage LCF in phase 2, simply to get this next phase, to get some flesh on the bone. Let me be careful. Just to clarify, Jonathan, if we engage in phase 2, it doesn't mean that we're doing it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're just starting to solicit developers to see if this is even feasible. Does anybody even want to look at this? Then you get a true valuation of your property. LCF, I have full confidence in Jonathan's work to say, test fit, it seems like something could work here, but we won't know any more unless we take another step. If we don't take the next step, we don't know any more, and so we kind of have to take the next step to know if there's a step after that. Does that make sense? So my proposal would just be to take a next step in this process and to continue to walk around it a few times. Brett, the council has talked a bit, and if you want to share what a next step potentially from the council.
Yeah, the council is in favor of moving forward with Phase 2. Technically, the invoice for Phase 2 would be, within our authority to go ahead and approve and authorize, but we didn't think it was right to not, allow the voters to have a say. So we are proposing a special voters meeting on February 24th at 7 p.m. That's a Monday. It's about a month from now, and it'll be a vote to either approve or disapprove, moving forward with just Phase 2. Again, Phase 2 is just to gather more information, get more specifics, get to the next layer, see what it looks like. Does not commit us to moving forward with the project, but it'll give us a lot more information. And Jonathan can't keep working for free because Phase 1 is done, so that we have to engage them in a Phase 2. So that's really it. I think we're going to have a lot more questions. Will come into clarity with a Phase 2. Still not everything, but I think a lot of things would come into clarity with moving forward. And council is behind moving forward to Phase 2, so we're proposing the special voters meeting. Again, that's February 24th. Yeah.
Somebody requested this presentation so that between now and this proposed meeting, that would make that proposed meeting much more effective.
Yes, we will send out this recorded live stream with the link to the presentation and an online form to fill out those 2 questions. So if you also do have the written feedback, please leave those with us tonight. You can give it to me, you can give it to Brett, you can leave it in the office. But write out any feedback questions, email us, fill out the form if you're online, and we will continue to look into this.
Just to clarify with Phase 2, so, all right, Pat DeLunas, are you still here? Oh yeah, you haven't left yet and gone to bed. Pat, you had a great, just what is this simply, bottom line? So just to clarify, bottom line, the voters meeting on the 24th of February is to vote on just entering into Phase 2. Doesn't mean that this is happening or anything, we're just taking the next step. That includes just seeing if there are developers that would submit proposals to see if any fish bite. Is it even there? And then secondarily, that would also include, Jonathan, an assessment of the 60,000 square feet next door, which we need to look at too, right? Okay.
Perfect. We're going to be around for a little bit after the meeting. If you guys, oh yeah, Mike.
Mentioning next door, is Incredible Pizza not going to be here for a while?
Incredible Pizza, their lease ends in 3 years, and we have an option to, we'll have the option to either extend or not. Good question. Yeah, Nathan.
I think we've exhausted all the questions for the most part. Just a comment about this. We see a lot of demand for high amenity living areas, right? We see what you're proposing, having dog parks, having pickleball, having things that keep the community busy. This area already has it. I mean, you have, 5, 6 restaurants all around here, all walkable. You have a church, fitness center, child daycare, Ronnie's, and it's all here. It's all, Pastor Jeff said to refrain from excitement. I'm excited. I think it's an awesome opportunity for not only the church, but also the community. So.
Thank you, Nate.
Great, thank you. All right, is it bedtime? Hey, baby Jordan is sleeping, and so Pastor Nathan, would you mind closing us in prayer tonight? And then again, we'll be available. Jonathan, let's give him a hand again for his time here.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun, everybody. We should be, yeah, this is fun. Let's pray, though. Father, we are having fun. We are your church, and we are here because of your faithfulness. You have been faithful to us all our days. You've sent faithful pastors to us. You've sent faithful people who have sacrificed much for this ministry. And so, Father, I ask that you would continue to be faithful to us, establish the work of our hands, do much through us, that more might be made of your name, that more might be loved and sent. In your name we pray. Amen.